Hello again. What a beautiful, crystal clear, cool Friday morning. And the Exiles are with you once again from La Divina Italian Cafe.
Like Blake Shelton said, you make me feel like Christmas. Although Gwen Stefani's got better stuff than you.
Yeah. Still didn't keep Miranda Lambert from ditching his ass.
See, I don't know what went wrong there, because I think Miranda's a better deal. Gwen's just a little too weird. But hey, they do what they do. Welcome to the Morning Exiles podcast.
In the cowboy parlance, Gwen looks like she's been rode hard and put up wet.
Oh, and I'm sure she has. I mean, you can't paint yourself that many different colors without having some damage. Without her makeup, she looks a lot like the women from Maude.
Our program today brought to you by our fine sponsor, Salassi Jewelry Fine Gifts at 249 North Range in the heart of the Antiques District downtown Denham Springs. That's my jewelry store, and I hope it will be yours too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Matter of fact, I get my wedding ring back today.
Do you really?
Yeah, they resized my wedding ring, so I get that back today.
How'd you do over the last week where you didn't have it on? Did you score any?
No. Only with the woman who put it on my finger in the first place.
Well, that's what I was referring to. What was in your mind?
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Well, there's a reason why a man might take his wedding ring off.
And it's not a good one.
Yeah, and it's not that reason for me.
Yeah, it's not a good one. There is no malaprop news for us this morning.
My God.
I have scoured and I have searched, and I think that's very good news. Although I thought I heard a morning anchor slip a supposedly out this morning, but
supposedly?
I can't be sure.
It's tough when you're dealing with those consonant sounds.
Yeah, I can't be sure. But hey, in place of malaprop news, I want to mention this to everybody. Our good friends at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, this is the second day of their Mediathon. It's a great chance for you to go and see the new Children's Hospital. And they've also got our buddies from Channel 9 and our buddies from 96.1 The River out there. And it is the big annual fundraiser for Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital. I plan after our broadcast to go over and say hello to a couple of old friends and take a look at the hospital.
Well, all right then.
And it is a great way for you to support the very important mission. You know, Kevin and I have done this for years with their car raffles and things like that to support the mission of Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital. So you can, after we're done.
Yeah, don't
After we're done, you can tune in to 96.1 The River, or you can actually go by and make your after we're done. But actually, if you want to go by now, you could walk right into their Mediathon with your cellular phone, listening to us while you go over to Our Lady Lake Hospital. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but watch where you're walking.
Anyway, on to the major business of our program this morning. Joining us, tomorrow is Election Day. For everyone who hasn't early voted, and I mean everyone, if you didn't early vote, you need to vote. I don't care who you vote for, but go out and vote. Campaign consultant and pollster extraordinaire Bernie Pinsonat joins us. And Bernie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful morning. Hope we have another one like that tomorrow, and hope we get a great turnout.
This has been a strange election season, to put it quite mildly.
Well, they're all long. The governor's race, or any governor's race, every 4 years, it's a long year, longer, a lot of activity. A lot of people make money, though. We're going to have Eddie Risponi, and we could end up with two guys spending $40 million. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
For a state race? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Senate race in St. Tammany. The guy's going to spend $1 million for a race for a job that pays about $20,000 a year.
You know, I can remember my eyes bugging out of my head when it was anticipated that every candidate for governor would have to spend at least $3 million to be viable, and that was not that long ago. That was only about 20 years ago.
Well, these guys are going to spend each $20 million or so, and then that's not counting the out-of-state money. That's probably another $5 or $6 million. Then you got the Bayou PAC, so $55 million at least. So that's a lot of money into the economy in 1 year, and that happens every 4 years. Of course, the presidential in Louisiana is almost a non-event. there's some money spent here, but
We're a flyover state, so who cares?
yeah, nobody comes here. Nobody spends any time here. But no, it's been a long year. Actually, guys, we don't think about it, but 20 years ago, these races started a year, 3 or 4 months before. They start campaigning in November, like the presidential. The presidential's 2 years in advance.
Oh, yeah.
But now the race really started in about June, July, and everybody's about sick of it, and everybody wants it to be over, and everybody wants to go vote and find out who's going to be the next governor.
There has been a lot of marginally hateful, factually sketchy advertising from everybody.
Yes.
Is this the new trend, Bernie?
Well, there was something interesting happened when you had Rasponi attacking Ralph Abraham, and Abraham took offense to it, and Ronald Reagan's "let's not attack each other" suggestion. Well, the problem with that is the Democrats used to do that to each other 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
When you had Blanco and you had the Attorney General at the time, Richard Ayoub, and all those guys. They were attacking each other every day. Well, guess what? After this election, the chances are you won't have a Democrat running statewide.
Well, Bernie,
so you'll have all Republicans. You know what they will be doing to each other?
They'll have to tear at each other.
Oh, yeah.
They got to attack each other. So that day's over.
They have more of a tendency, the Republicans have more of a tendency to eat their own anyway.
Yeah, they have a tendency to elect a Democrat governor like they did 4 years ago.
Yeah, they really did. I remember you talking about, attacking each other, Democrats. I remember every Democrat who had a marginal lead and wanted to make it larger would put a guy named Poogie Moiti in the race.
Yeah.
And
Poogie.
Poogie, P-U-G-G-I-E-M-O-Y-T-I, I believe.
Wow.
Poogie's deal was he would go in and just make all kinds of outlandish claims against the other person. He never expected to win, but I remember there was a state representative race down in the Bayou parishes, and he actually had a commercial that said, "My opponent's sister is a thespian," and people went, "Oh!" Of course, she's an
He
actress.
also had a $3 bill.
Yeah, you remember that.
In fact, Kevin mentioned the lack of specificity going on in the governor's race, which is it's a new phenomenon, but it's only going to get worse. And let me tell you guys a great story about why we consultants don't advise our candidates to give a lot of specific pledges on what they're going to do. Bennett Johnston in '71, this probably ought to be taught in universities, political science. Bennett Johnston was running around the state, and McKithen had been the governor, and this is a story that's being told back. So Bennett Johnston's sitting there talking about the complexity of the state budget and how it need to be refined, and we ended up having a state constitution the year after that. But he's talking about the complexities, and he said spaghetti bowl, and you can't get your hands around it. And all of a sudden, Edwards and him took that and did a flyer in the mail or whatever they did then and said he was anti-Italian.
Anti-Italian.
Listen, 5 years after Bennett Johnson was elected United States Senator and I was working for him, people would say, "Why is Bennett so anti-Italian?"
5 years.
So if you want, anything you say can be used against you.
It can and will be used against you. Yeah.
Why do these people not offer a lot of specificity on what they're going to do? Because it comes back to bite them.
Well, and plus, if they say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, and then that doesn't happen in that first term, they're going to get beat over the head with what they promised and didn't deliver.
Well, you don't have to say you're going to do it. The Democrats in Louisiana are saying that Eddie Rasponi is going to raise the property tax. They're saying that they're using all the scare tactics on state workers that you're going to all be fired. But the stuff that really works, negative ads work, guys, but they have to be cleverly done, and they have to have some humor, or they have to have something to it. Just vicious. Some of these ads we're seeing now there's not a lot of talent behind them.
No.
They're just blatant, vicious attacks, and those really don't work.
You Remember 2010 Senate race, David Vitter running for re-election, Charlie Melancon challenging, and there was
Yes.
that wonderful negative ad with Charlie Melancon, a guy playing Charlie Melancon, down at the border, holding the fence open and handing out money as the illegal aliens came through. That was a clever negative ad, I
Yeah,
thought.
I think that was done by the National Republican Party.
Well, you know, it used to be some of the PAC ads, because they have a lot of money, particularly
Yes.
the ones that are coming out of Washington, used to have some commercials that had some finesse. They don't anymore.
Well,
they
you-
really don't.
Well, you had there was a guy named Dino Cedar who came out of Shreveport. He did Bennett Johnson's race. He did a lot of campaigns, and he was really known for being very talented with his ads. There was a great ad, and he won a lot of awards. It was an ad about education and the days of Bill Dodd and Louis Michaux and all that. And it had he did a big ice figure, and it was a 12, and it was melting. And the camera was slowly watching it melt, and it had 12 years of failure, Michaux and Bill Dodd.
Wow.
And it caught your attention. It was very negative, but it was well done, and you watched it.
The hamburger Louis thing stuck
The
on
hamburger
Michaux
Louis thing was an
because
incredible ad.
he had those, was it Burger Chef restaurants? He had a
Yeah.
bunch
Yeah,
of them.
You got a chain.
Yeah, and it was to the Blue Danube.
Yeah.
Remember
So,
but those were creative and clever.
what one misstep do you think each of the campaigns has made?
Or the PAC supporting them.
Yeah, I mean, the people have seen in their
I
in their
think that
advertising.
the first ad, guys, and I came out with a poll right after Labor Day, and it was the first, I guess you'd say, legitimate poll from Louisiana, from a Louisiana pollster, and I had him at 47%, and people, it was one of my better analysis, but I said that Eddie, his first ad, instead of saying, "I'm Eddie, I've done all this stuff, and by the way, I'm a Trump supporter," he went too hard on Trump, because Trump is good, and he's an energizer, but he also has people that like him because he's the only thing between them and communism, but they don't really like him personally. So you have to be careful with Trump.
I agree. He didn't tell his story in
He
the
didn't
first
tell
ad.
his story.
It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, but he's recovered. His ads have gotten a little softer, but it was a huge misstep. And after spending about $6-7 million when I ran my poll, it showed that he had high negatives that I didn't think he should have. The other thing that poll showed, though, Edwards, his ads weren't helping him. The Jindal stuff, I don't think anybody cared about that. And at that point in time, and by the way, that's why he's I've never seen him over 47-48%. And I've said it, excellent job ratings are what you're looking for. If you say excellent, good, not so good, poor, good is like people can run away from you in a nanosecond if they get a better offer or a better attractive candidate. John Bel Air was an excellent rating with white voters in Louisiana. It's 10%. That is like pathetic. You know what Trump is? 70% excellent.
Yeah.
Now, you don't see that. I mean, that's the highest I've ever seen. Mike Foster would get in the 60s, but when you're at 70%, nobody's going to beat you ever, especially when you're talking about Louisiana. But so you had a lot of candidates, and none of them have really been overly popular. This isn't a race where there's an easy choice. People are having a hard time making a choice. So what have we seen since day one? Nobody's over 50%. Nobody has zoomed up and taken control of this race.
I think that the Edwards campaign, folks, I think one of their biggest missteps was running an entire commercial that was all over this state for about 4 or 5 weeks solo about the Medicaid expansion, accepting the Medicaid expansion. And the nice-looking lady who talked about I had to choose between,
Right.
going bankrupt and all this type of thing. And there's a couple things wrong with that. Number one, she doesn't look like she's been sick.
Right.
Number two, she is obviously Caucasian, and everybody knows that the largest number of people who are on these type of public assistance programs in this state are African American.
Right.
And number three, I think middle-class taxpayers said, look, you did what you felt was necessary for these people, but I don't think you should be running on it because I'm paying the bills. And it should be your job as the chief executive officer to retract and compact these programs rather than expand them. And I think that really hit a note, particularly with a more educated middle-class viewer.
Well, the other problem with it is, it's not, look, it's an embarrassing number when you look at us.
It is, yeah.
When we have 41% of the states on Medicaid, that is not a pretty picture to look at. Okay, I'm going to move to Louisiana and open a big business or bring a company in here. By the way, 41% of the states on Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a good number. But here's the problem, and this backs up what you're saying. He doesn't need 41. Those 41% already voting for him. So you're telling the other 60%, which they're not crazy about having to pay that kind of money for, and the health care is so screwed up now, you don't have your doctor. So no, it wasn't the best ad he could have run. And by the way, this is the problem with it. That 41% is already voting for him.
Yeah.
He needs the other 8%.
He's preaching to the choir.
Right. So, and one of the things that happened to him, though, right down the stretch was, and he stumbled, he was probably around close to 50%. And Lane Grigsby hit him with that ad. And
The sexual harassment, the Johnny, whatever his name is.
That Johnny Anderson ad knocked him for a loop. It wasn't fatal, but it slowed down his momentum that last 3 or 4 days, because he didn't have, look, the reporters will tell you his answer was not a good answer. Impeccable source recommended it. Well, there ain't no impeccable source. All he had to do was call the state police, and the guy was involved in multiple.
Right.
People figured that out.
The allegations had been going on for several years.
There's not allegations, they're true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy was a predator.
Well,
and to have him on your staff and turn him loose and give him the power of the governor's office is absolutely amazing.
I think one of the problems with men, not as many women, but there are some women in high position, is don't tell me that, because if I don't know it, I can deny it. Don't tell me that.
Well, let me tell you, Democratic women in Louisiana, don't ever complain to me about sexual harassment by men. You make a big deal out of Shetler, who just wrote a letter. That was
Snoopy love you cards.
Silly letter. Then you have this happening in the governor's office, and yet they don't, because it's a Democrat, let's give him a pass. So the double standard, to me, exists, and Democrats have no leg to stand on when they're talking about sexual harassment, because they can't get it right. It depends on who the person is. It's okay for Bill Clinton to do it, but it's not okay for anyone else to do it.
The thing that sticks out in my mind as being egregious was the hush money. I mean, yes, there's what Mr. Anderson did, but then there was that, taxpayer money was used to shut the witness up.
Well, I've got one worse than that. Jill Kraft, she takes half the money. She should have done it for free to help this woman. And then she attends a meeting with the Edwards crowd, which slams the victim and saying that she basically, they said she deserved it. So
she deserved it.
I mean, literally attacking her for making a claim, and she wasn't allowed to keep her job. Where was Jill Kraft? She should have been fighting like hell for the woman to keep her job. And I didn't mean to spend so much time on that.
Well,
but it is.
When you're hired by the other party, you can't really do that. So that's not a point that we can revisit at this particular point.
No, I wouldn't hire Jill Kraft to represent my dog, but that's me personally.
Wow.
I would. I just watched her. I mean, that was outrageous behavior.
It's all part of these HR suits, and unfortunately, it's not often pretty to watch. But let's get back to what the candidates said and did. What about Ralph? I know he's not in the runoff, but where did he screw up?
He screwed up when he ran, when he qualified. And look,
You're not the only person that said that.
First of all, I knew before he ran that he had met with all of the so-called, I'm not talking about a 1 million person. There are people in Louisiana who are worth more than 5 million, and they can afford to jack up your campaign with contributions. And the other problem is, where are all the millionaires? They're not in North Louisiana, guys.
No.
The money's in South Louisiana.
They're all south of I-10.
Why has no one from North Louisiana been elected governor since John McKithen?
Because there's no money up
there. There's no money up there. So then he goes around the state, across the state, meets with all the so-called multimillionaires, and he doesn't get a good response. None of them jump up and say, I'm with you, Ralph. Whether you like Jindal or not, he did that and got those people on board, and he was flush with cash from day one. Ralph Abraham had to raise $5 million minimum. When the race was over, his part of the race was over, he'd only raised $2 million.
Yeah.
Look, you need minimum $5 million, and when you have an incumbent governor with all the money he has, you got to match him. And so his whole campaign, he's a nice guy, very likable, but it was doomed from the beginning because he couldn't keep up. 10 million beats 2 million every day of the week.
Well, yeah, and there are a lot of people, and I happen to be one of them. It's like, you are more valuable to me in the United States Congress
Yeah.
than you are as governor of Louisiana. What the hell are you doing?
Well, let me state for the record that I've been saying this for 30 years. They all run for governor for the wrong reason, because you get to be king of Louisiana.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be that way. We need to give the more responsibility back to the states, give them the authority to raise their own money. The mayor of Houston really doesn't care about the governor of Texas. They
Nope.
can run their own government.
Yep.
And in our state, you have to kiss the ring of the governor. And guess what? It is killing us. We're never going to be of any consequence until we change the format of the governor. You got to go kiss the governor's ring to pass a tax in your own parish. You can't. You got to go to the bond commission to get anything done. The governor controls everything. Every sheriff has to kiss the governor's ring. Every parish president. So why wouldn't you want to be governor? You get to be the king of Louisiana. But that's not the reason that you should be governor. And that's why my boss, Bennett Johnson, wanted to be governor. John Breaux wanted to be governor. Ralph wanted to be governor. Everybody wants to be governor.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get to be king of
Buddy
Louisiana.
Romer found out about 8 minutes after he became governor that he really didn't want to be governor.
Right. Exactly.
Before we let you go, Bernie, one more statewide race, and that is Kyle Ardoin, Secretary of State, against Gwen Collins Greenup.
Collins
Greenup.
Greenup, yep.
Did this brouhaha, which has settled down over him at the Trump rally, has it affected him in any way?
No, it hadn't affected him. Number one, you got these lawyers who come out and say these things. I read the account of the story. He has the right to go attend a rally where he's being endorsed. You can't take him out of politics.
Well, I think the
And
allegation was that by standing up there and saying Eddie Risponi is the man, that's where the infraction came.
Well, if you're going to make him run for office, you can't limit his ability because, first of all, the governor of Louisiana controls his budget. The lieutenant governor of Louisiana, who has no such restrictions, is not endorsing or getting involved. I think you can attend rallies, you can do what you want. The endorsing thing, endorsing Trump, endorsing Eddie. I'm not that familiar. You could bang him or criticize him on that, but my problem with it is, if we're gonna put these people in those positions, let's get rid of the office because they got to run for re-election.
Or let's go back and rewrite that section
Right.
of the law.
Now, let's just amend that statute. My question about that race is the state Democratic Party doesn't seem focused at all in trying to get Ms. Greenup elected.
Well, then she has no chance. She's run before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's going to lose about 16, 18 points.
We had her as a guest on our radio program. She was an intelligent woman. She was earnest. She came across, she didn't know anything about the job, but that's never stopped a candidate before. Because you can, on the job training, you find out about the job after you get in. But there seems to be no machine backing her up at all.
Well, they don't have any money. And they're not going to spend money on her versus the governor.
Yeah.
All their efforts is about the governor. And by the way, you could say, as a side effect, they're trying to turn out voters for John Bel Edwards. And by the way, those voters who are primarily black voters, about two-thirds of them are going to vote for her. So there is a side benefit that she's getting, but it's a waste of money to try to tell the majority of whites in Louisiana that we want you to vote for a Democrat.
Well, yeah, particularly
Should the-
someone who's new on the political
Right.
scene, basically.
Should Secretary of State be a gubernatorial appointee?
Well, I could.
A cabinet post, basically.
Well, why do we need a lieutenant governor? What do they do?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of...
No, I'm saying that, and then you go down, and you go to agriculture commissioner. We ought to have like a cabinet like the president does.
Yeah, that's what I was, basically.
Yeah.
Well-
I've always thought it was interesting that we have all these elected positions that, under other circumstances, might be appointed.
Well, there are some states where they aggregate because it makes sense. It's a very populous state. In Illinois, you have got your insurance department is under
The governor.
the Attorney General's office.
Oh,
Your Secretary of State is under the
Under.
Attorney General's office.
Well-
Your Commissioner of Elections, all that is under the AG's
well,
office.
I'm glad to say that Bernie Pinsonat spent a lot of time and effort, and we got rid of the education. We don't elect an
I remember.
education.
God, who's that guy? Kelly Nixon.
Kelly- that
Was there forever.
That's what I was there when we went in, and that was our promise. And it took us 8, 12 years before we finally did it. Superintendent of Education was an elective job. But the problem was you'd run for it, and then you had to go get all the book suppliers and everybody else. See, the problem is people just don't give you money to run for these jobs. There has to be something
In it for them.
Yeah, it's
Quid
not.
pro
It's not
quo.
right. It's not about I want to fix education, so everybody runs and gives the superintendent. Kelly Nix was in debt for like 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, the Commissioner of Elections Commissioner was very forthright. He said everybody who runs for this office takes money from the insurance companies.
Well, the Secretary of State people don't realize it, but I told Shetler and them, I'm going to run a poll for you, but I'm not going to mention Secretary of State. I'm going to ask about your job performance, and I'm going to put the elections, what kind of job you do running the election in Louisiana. Because if I did Secretary of State, 20% of Louisiana could answer the question because they paid attention. But I reframed it and referenced it to election, and Shetler got like 80% positive job approval rating. And if I ask about Secretary of State, 65% of Louisiana didn't know what he did.
True, well, except for those
Wow.
Snoopy cards. Coming to the end of our segment, Bernie, I know you've got an appointment. Do you want to call the governor's race, or is it too close to call?
Well, as a pollster, I tend to stick with what the numbers say. Like my personal opinion, I just never give it because that's not my role.
Okay, fair enough.
The election is very close, too close to call. Be honest with you, if somebody's paying me, I would say it's too close to call. It's all about turnout. Nobody in this state, as of right now, knows how this is going to turn out,
Well,
including me.
that gives us a nice cliffhanger.
Yep.
Well, it does. It's if you everybody in Louisiana who has a person they want to win, well, of the two, the only way you can affect the outcome is go vote, and that's where we are. But that's a good outcome to have for both of them because they both have the opportunity to get to win, but that is depending upon their supporters going out and voting.
And that leads to my last question for you. Do you believe that this election is going to push voter turnout overall, say above 45, 46%?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you already got a record turnout in St. Tammany of the early vote. You got that in a lot of places.
EBR had huge turnout for
You had
early
a
voting.
yeah, you had a big turnout in Ouachita when Trump left. You had a big turnout in Calcasieu where Trump was. Look, go ask Timmy Temple what Trump did him. He lost an area that he should have won 2-1. Trump, he was winning 2-1. When Trump left town, he lost 2-1.
Interestingly
to
enough,
Donald.
just yesterday I talked to a source in Ouachita that said that there was a bump in early voting, but it wasn't a heavy Republican bump. So there was no Trump bump, so to speak, after Trump
No.
came to Monroe.
I disagree with that. He had a pretty good white turnout.
Well, yeah, I mean that is his
That's
big
his-
core. Bernie, as always, a pleasure to have you. We know you got an appointment to go to, and we do appreciate you joining us
Guys,
this morning.
it was fun.
Yep.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you, Bernie Pinsonat, political pollster extraordinaire, and can't wait till the next election cycle. Who knows what's going to happen next? Before we do a little cash change here and talk about high-tech security for businesses, industry, research, education, even
Individuals.
large homes and individuals, I want to talk to you about Salassi Jewelry. We did our show out there a week ago Thursday, and I have said this since the first time I laid eyes on the place. It is truly a metropolitan jewelry store set up in the heart of the Antiques District in Denham Springs. And when I tell you they've got everything, I don't mean just cases full of stuff. I mean, they've got the right attitude to be your jeweler. And that's so, so important. Yes, they have got great lines in gold and silver and platinum. And for men, they've got the alternative wedding rings that, if you don't want to wear your gold wedding ring when you're on the golf course, you can get an acrylic one or you can get a titanium one, something like that. But they've also got an attitude to try to work within your budget. Now, there are some jewelry stores that you walk in and you say, I want to get something for my wife, and I've got $500 to spend. They say, well, you're wasting your time with us. Kevin had that actually happen to him. How
Yeah.
rude. How terribly rude.
I went and I told him my budget, and the guy said, yeah, I don't think we can help you.
That's not going to happen at Salassi Jewelry. And, for you guys that want to get something real special, ask your wife about Mignon Faget. They have got the full line of Mignon Faget.
These chicks dig it.
They do. And I'm talking about the jewelry and the homewares. Well, they make beautiful glassware and decanters and things like that. But remember this if you remember nothing else. Stuart Salassi is a certified GIA Diamond graduate. And his personal philosophy is to give you the most rock for your buck. And he'll walk you through the process like a friend, not just somebody who knows their stones.
All sorts of things for gifts. So whatever gem that your wife, I work on building a collection of for Marianne. All emeralds, all amethysts, all rubies, that sort of thing. They've got all of that. And by the way, if you've got a senior in high school, class rings.
There you go. So stop by and visit them this holiday season. Salassi Jewelry on Range Avenue in Denham Springs. Time for our next guest to join us. Kirk Evans, come on over here. Let me tell you a little bit about Kirk. He is an old friend, known him a long time. But Kirk started his career in security in the United States Marine Corps. He was a member of the Anti-Terror Security Force during his time in the Corps. Came out of there, rapidly became a detective with the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, and he served in the ARAB unit, the Armed Robbery and Burglary Unit. And he has, up to this point, worked for 3 national security companies, as he said, the parts and smarts kind of guy. Well, now he is a principal in a brand new company here in Baton Rouge called Kentech, and they do high-end security for industry, business, research labs, and also for your home. Kirk, good to have you with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Did I miss anything?
No, sir. Sounds great.
Okay, well, we're out of time. Good to see you. Long resume, but there's a reason for all that. Tell me a little bit about your personal interest in security.
So, my whole career has been sort of built around it. As you spoke about, a young man in the Marine Corps came out and sort of embraced it. I believe that whenever you do something that you care about and that you love, it you tend to embrace it and you care about it more. So it's one of those types of things. For me, I care about what I do. It's important to me, so I embrace it.
Security is a growth industry. The technology that goes with security, the interconnectivity, the ability to see even at night with things like infrared cameras and things like that. Tell me about the kind of things that you have learned that you do, and then I want to talk a little bit about a security risk that a lot of people may have over their head right here in Baton Rouge.
Sure. So the security industry has changed over the last few years very rapidly. It used to be where we dealt with the corporate security guy, the head security guy, the owner of the business. Now we are typically working directly with the IT teams for everyone, because everything that we are now installing touches the network. Everything is a network appliance, and there's very clear ways to get into the security network that's touching your overall architect network. So if, for example, if you have a reader, access control reader on your door, and it's touching your network, then that could be a place that someone could get into.
A point of vulnerability?
Absolutely.
Is it true that these days it's easier to, if the object is to get your money, it's easier to do that electronically through internet technology than it is to actually break in and physically steal your money?
100%. Yes.
Now,
That's frightening.
you and I were talking about everybody likes to secure their business, their place of work, their school, their research laboratory, their bank. And you see these little cameras that look like half of a hockey puck. And you told me that there is a great point of potential vulnerability on some of these cameras. Can you elaborate on that for folks a little bit?
Absolutely. So there's several different aspects of that. The first is they are all touching your network. So typically, most people, when they install a camera, they leave the default passwords on it. So basically, if you get into someone's network and you type in that password, you're going to be in their network because they haven't changed it.
Right.
It's very, very common. Even security companies go in and they leave the default passwords. So that's the first thing I would talk about. The second is, again, it's touching your network, and there are some companies that have been identified that are risk to the United States, even to the point where the government has banned a couple of these companies from using those cameras, those camera lines, those manufacturers in government facilities.
Now, there's a reason for this. Did I hear you right when you said a lot of these cameras, which are manufactured in China from a company that's owned by the government of China, that each of these cameras has its own IP address?
That's correct. They're a network appliance, so that means they lay on the network with an IP address. That's correct.
What do they call it? The Internet of Things. These are all there's all these devices now. I mean, your refrigerator can be connected to the internet.
Correct. The
your
Ring
faucet
camera.
can be connected
all
to
of
the
those
internet.
things are connected. So if it has an IP address, it's a network appliance, therefore it has vulnerability.
But I'm sitting there in China. I'm an executive with this company. Purchase orders have to come through me. And I see that we've got an order to put in 15 cameras at the Pennington Biomedical Research Center. And I say, I wonder what kind of research they're doing. And I can look in to a laboratory by accessing individual cameras, can I not?
So I spoke to a cyber security professional that used to be with the NSA. We were at a show in Vegas, and I asked him that question. I said, is this true? Is it really, is there really malware on all these cameras that are coming in the United States? And he looked at me. He used to be a hacker for the United States government. He would go after bad actors. That was his job. He would just hack and try to find bad actors from other countries. And he looked at me and he said, Kirk, absolutely. Every single one that's coming in has some sort of back door that they could get into if they wanted.
Wow.
Every single
Would
one.
you ever know?
Of course not. How would you? Unless you hire those guys, those cybersecurity experts, to do those checks on your network, and none of us are spending that kind of money. The very large industries that are mandated and have, they're required to do those types of checks. The utility companies who have SIP, which is critical infrastructure protection, the SIP 14s, they're mandated to have a certain level of security and do those types of checks. But even those types of industries are mandated by the government, but then they read those regulations and they basically make their own decisions on how they're gonna fulfill those regulations.
Are any of these kind of cameras, to your knowledge, in use in Baton Rouge? He's looking at Lance's cameras right now.
Every place I walk into in Baton Rouge, probably between 50 and 75% of the small businesses have those cameras. And by the way, they're OEMs, which means sometimes they're sold to another manufacturer and they put their name on it. For example, I called a manufacturer not too long ago, a very high-level manufacturer. I won't say the name, but...
Oh, go ahead, say the name.
So, okay, so so it was Bosch. It's a Bosch camera, and it was way too cost-effective for what it was.
It was inexpensive for a product that has Bosch on its nameplate.
Correct. And so I called Bosch, and I said, is this camera an OEM to either Hikvision or Dahua camera? And they said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, where's this camera manufactured? He goes, well, I can tell you it's manufactured in China. I said, thank you.
Boom.
So I knew that I wasn't going to sell that to my customer.
If they have these kind of cameras in critical locations, we all know that people who want to do us harm, whether it's actually blow something up, shoot something, or steal important pieces of infrastructure information, we know that they do what's called compositing. I know you're very familiar with this. They take a little picture here, a snippet of video there over time, and they see patterns of behavior, and they see vulnerabilities. Could these kinds of cameras be accessed by people who, want to pull a vest in a public place? Like, the 19th JDC, for example.
I can't speak to that other than I can tell you that these cameras have a pathway to be accessed, period. Or they're also a gateway into the network. So they don't necessarily are just looking at the cameras. It's a way for them to get inside your network.
That was my question. If they've got access to the camera, can they get into, say, your Wi-Fi network at home?
Absolutely, as long as it's connected to your network. Now, there are certain businesses that you will find, for example, casinos, they'll have what we call a dark network, or where it's not connected to an internet source.
Yeah.
In those situations, there is no vulnerability because there's no access to the outside internet. But if you own a small business, or even like you said, a research facility, and you have a camera, whether it's one of the Chinese manufacturers or not, and you do not have it secured, and you don't have safeguards on and that could be a camera, it could be a thermostat, it could be your doorbell camera that everyone's getting now.
Oh, yeah.
They're all connected to your network. So if it's not secured and fortified, then it's a gateway to get into your network.
There's also a great deal of paranoia right now about these personal assistants, Alexa and some of these others that you speak to, and you can let them control your lights, your television, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people are worried about who's listening. And is it possible that I expect that the manufacturer might be listening, but who else could be listening?
So again, I can't speak to that other than it's connected to your network, and I've not done. I don't have any background on that sort of what their security and what those manufacturers are doing. Amazon and those guys. I'm sure they're secured at some sort of. I do not have the answer to that.
Well, we do know this, that twice now, Alexa has been subpoenaed into a state court as a witness to a crime.
Wow.
Because as it happened, the device heard the crime being committed. So if it was subpoenaed as a witness, this machine, and the judges in both cases allowed it, then there must be some vulnerability to listening somewhere.
So I will tell you that I know that most of the time when you sign those apps and you agree to those terms, that they are listening, and they claim it's for algorithms and to be better, so the system will work better. It's the same thing with Facebook. When you Google something and all of a sudden you get all those ads on Facebook, that's sort of scary as well.
Oh yeah, it's right. It's absolutely right there.
I mean, you Google a brand new T-shirt, and all of a sudden you have you have ads all over your social media for brand new T-shirts.
Oh yeah, it's all interconnected. I've got a question I wanted to ask you. About a year and a half ago, the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge had a speaker come in, and this lady was an expert on security while you travel.
Okay.
And she said something that I thought was rather startling, and I'm not quite sure how this would be accomplished. But she said, never plug your phone in to charge it or your iPad in to charge it in the hotel room at the charging station. You know, it's usually attached to the lamp or the desk. She said the hotel can steal all the information that you have stored on your phone. I don't think they can do that with an electrical connection,
I don't
can
think
they?
that's a thing. No.
Because that's not a network connection.
That's
That's an
correct.
It's not
electrical.
a data port.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Now, if you plug it into your computer and it charges through your computer, now that's talking to a network. It's
Yeah.
touching a device. But if it's a lamp with a power,
Yeah, with a
input,
regular two-prong plug.
Or a
Correct.
USB.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a thing.
This-
I think she was.
Are there risks with these appliances? I saw a commercial last night. I guess it's been on for a while, but it's a makeup mirror that you talk to your makeup mirror, and it's connected to the internet, and you can have your makeup mirror playing, music off of YouTube or Spotify. Is there any inherent risk with those? Do you think?
So again, I want you to consider that security professionals, right? So let's say we hire a guy who's an electrician and he's now installing cameras. And he's trained in pulling up an IP address, and a lot of the software is very intuitive. You press a button, it grabs all the cameras on your network and brings it in. And most of the time, when you set up a video management software system, so all these cameras now, they used to go into a DVR, and you just had a GUI, a graphical user interface that just sort of showed your cameras. Now it's software. So now we're bringing the appliances into software, and my reason for that whole spiel is if you have a security professional who's not going in and changing passwords and fortifying and securing those cameras for your network, do you think the person plugging it in to your home network's doing it? And the manufacturer, how secure is that manufacturer? Do they really care about your home security, or are they just trying to sell a product?
So you gimmick, yeah.
That's right.
We are talking with Kirk Evans. He is a principal in a company called Kentech. They are a very, very high-tech security company. Kirk, what kind of companies and what kind of individuals need the type of services that you all provide? Who has a need for you?
So, great question. Potentially anyone, right? So from a home that needs some sort of security or some assistance, to a hospital or a large office building that needs access control and those types of things. One of the things I'll tell you is we prefer not to come in, and if someone calls us and says, "Hey, I need a camera system," the first thing we want to do is talk to them and understand what their needs are. Sometimes you believe you need a camera system, but by the time we do an assessment and understand what your needs are, it may be something totally different that you need. It may be lighting. It may be access control on your doors. It may be a intercom system to allow people in and out and to assist you in letting. It may be a visitor management system where we are scanning driver's licenses and running them against a database. And all of those things are available.
Can you secure people's financial data as well and businesses and things like that?
Absolutely. So, and of course, we have partners that help us with the cyber side. But you have to understand that you're only secure. So, for example, you can secure your facility and your cyber as much as you want, but if someone can walk in and plug into your network, right? Or if some of the worst data breaches ever were someone left a jump drive out in a parking lot, and some guy walks out and he grabs the jump drive and he walks back into his office. He goes, "Man, I want to see what's on this." Puts it in his computer, boom, the malware's there, right? So there's different layers of securing your facility and your networks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. Is that a thing, by the way?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there? I'm gonna
Note
try
to
to.
self: if I find a thumb drive, throw it away.
Well, yeah.
Well, by the way, so let's say there's a camera on that pole out there, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a network appliance. So it's an IP camera.
Okay.
Okay, Internet Protocol. And the switch or the connection is out on that pole. So 2 o'clock in the morning, if I have let's say it's on a box 5 foot from the ground. 2 o'clock in the morning, if I break in, I open the box and I plug into your network. I'm in your network now.
Whoa.
I didn't even break into your building because I'm in the parking lot because you have a piece of category cable, Cat 5, Cat 6, network cable, running all the way out there, and then you have a connection,
Wow.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have the ability to do diagnostics and
And you have to
And
secure
repairs
it
on
on the other side as well, right?
Well, and you know, it's like we have points of entry that we don't even think about. I was telling you yesterday, we just installed at our home a couple of these Ring cameras, and for what they are, they do a very good job. But I've only loaded the response software onto my phone because I am obsessive about my phone. My phone is in my physical possession at all times. I don't leave it on a desk somewhere. So I'm the only one that would be able to get into my system through my Ring right now, unless, of course, somebody wants to pull up in my driveway and hack it, right?
Correct. So I'm glad you brought that up. So currently, Kevin, what Windows are you using currently right now on your computer? 10. So the technology, this is something for you guys to think about. The technology that most people have, most hospitals in this town, most colleges, because they were my customers, they have what's called proximity technology. So a prox reader is the little square reader that when you walk up to the door, you take a proximity card and you swipe your card, right? You've seen
Right.
it, right? Insurance companies in town, the state government, everyone has them. So the majority of people who have the old proximity technology, it's 25 years old. So I want you to imagine you using Windows 98 right now. That's what they have on their doors.
I've got software on my computer that won't run with Windows 98.
Exactly. So let me take, because you made me consider this when you talked about your phone, not
Yeah.
leaving your phone. So there's a technology, you can literally Google it right now, and it says Prox Clone. It's $25. You can get it from China. You can order it right now. It'll be here in a couple days. And you can take this device, and if you leave your ID card, right? So Bill Profita has an ID where he works.
Yeah, I used to have one when I worked at the radio station.
You leave it right on your desk because you go to the restroom. I can take your card in about 7 seconds and clone it with this device. Then I take that device and I take a clean card and I put it on that card. Now I have access to everything you have access to.
And it's less than $20.
Less than $20. You just Googled it?
Yep.
How is that even
Less
legal?
than $20.
Because they're coming from China and other places.
But a reputable seller is selling this. I mean, a company that you would consider
Yeah.
a major online seller is selling this thing.
And so
for
there's
less
no
than
good
$20.
there's no good need for that other than to obviously clone someone's card.
That's amazing.
Can guys like you who are at this end of the spectrum, can you go in to somebody that has high security needs and evaluate and perhaps reverse engineer or perhaps upgrade their systems in place so they don't have any downtime? Can you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but there have been upgrades to all of those types of systems. HID is the main player in that world. We have partners that'll come in and help us with those types of things. But basically, you can retrofit those systems. Even the control panels, which actually hold the NIC, the network interface card that is talking to the internet. So an access control system is going to have all these cables that go back to a control panel that's talking to the network. And that's why as it goes out to the card reader, if you're not secure, you have different vulnerabilities all the way across. So depending on the size of the system, we typically would start with changing the credentials first. So even the credentials have to be upgraded, right? The credentials are only, let's call them, they're different. They're different.
They're qualifiers for you as a user.
Yes.
Is what they are.
Well, and they're different levels of sophistication
Yeah.
over the years. They have been upgraded as well. So at the end of the day, we can evaluate those types of things and take steps and incrementally upgrade their systems, or we can rip and replace. It just depends on their situation. And like you said, if typically we could replace different sections as we go and not have downtime.
Franz, Franz just walked in the door, so I was thinking of him. Kirk, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Sir.
More and more companies are doing what we called 15 years ago telecommuting. They're allowing their employees to work from a home office.
Yes.
What are the inherent dangers there of an employee logging into the company network?
So one of our the former company before I started where I'm at now, we had a national bank as a customer, and one of the things they started doing was putting biometric readers on their laptops.
Uh-oh.
So the biometrics would allow the company who's letting someone work at home be sure that the person that their employee is the only person using that computer and getting on their network. So there are safeguards you can put in, but at the end of the day, again, now you're at the mercy of that home security's, the home network, the security on that home network compared to what.
Yeah, my wife works from home, and I've
Right.
taken steps to, as much as I think a private consumer can do,
Yeah.
to try to make that home network, at least alert me to an invasion of some kind.
How much can these cameras that sound like it's not a good idea to have them? How much can they see? If I am, if I'm a financial planner, and I'm working from home, and I've got one of these cameras, can it look at my screen and see Kevin Gallagher's investments and get account numbers and things like that?
So it's a good question. So the way we define that sort of thing is by pixels, right? So imagine the old TVs when we were growing up. Your regular SD standard definition TV where you used to have the three
Which is like
channels.
480p, something like that.
So a regular analog camera is about 300,000 pixels. So the regular cameras we had all these years coming up until now. So the new technology is called megapixel. Megapixel means like a 1.3 megapixel would be 1.3 million pixels. The normal camera sold nowadays is going to be 1080p, which is 2 million pixels. So if that camera above you was 1080p and it was focused right on this table, you might be able to get on a computer screen.
And read it.
However, as technology gets better, the pixels are getting higher and higher. So now you can get a 5 megapixel camera for the price probably 2 years ago of a 2 megapixel camera. And it won't be long till you'll be getting 10 megapixel cameras. And at the end of the day, I want you to consider you have a big screen, you can zoom in after the fact because the data is now 10 million pixels, right? Instead of 300,000. So the more pixels you have, pixels per foot, you can zoom in and see it after the fact, which is why you don't see pan, tilt, and zoom cameras as much anymore. We used to have those cameras everywhere because you could zoom in and see what now we put one camera that's very high resolution up and you can see everything. As a matter of fact, they put like 50 megapixel cameras, 40 megapixel cameras in stadiums. Have y'all seen the LSU thing where you can zoom in and see yourself?
Oh, yeah.
That's what that is. It's a huge one camera with it's a very high
Extremely
megapixel.
good quality. Kirk, we are nearing the end here. If someone who's listening may feel the need to talk to you about their system, upgrading, getting a new system, or they just want to find out where they are in terms of securing their data and their place, do you have a web presence? How do they find you?
So we do. It's Kentech. You can Google us. It's
Kentech.
Yes, and they can certainly call us at 225-227-4424.
Well, you've given me a chill, but you've also given me some knowledge that I didn't possess before, so I guess that's a good thing.
So the good news is, as I told you yesterday, a little bit of security is better than none. So you said something I wanted to clarify. You said you don't know if it's a good thing to have these cameras. I will tell you this: there are thousands of other manufacturers that you can use. There's just two that have been identified. There are other manufacturers that are very safe. So I am a huge proponent of having security and having that presence. I will tell you that it's to me it's peace of mind, and it will. There's way more that comes with having a camera system, an access control system, and security. It helps you with your managing your team. It helps. There's way more positives than negatives.
Kirk Evans with Kentech, security expert. Thanks for joining us, Kirk. Appreciate
Thanks.
you being with us.
Appreciate it. Very
Good to see
enlightening.
you.
Very enlightening. And we thank you for spending some time with us this Friday morning. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll have a little post-mortem on the, is that a right word, post-mortem? On the election.
I guess it depends on your political leanings.
We'll be talking about the results of the elections, and did they work out the way that you wanted. Our program brought to you today by Salassi Jewelry and Fine Gifts, 239 North Range in Dedham. They do appraisals, financing, they buy, sell, trade, design, build, repair. Those are very important. If you want a specific piece of jewelry, something that you dreamed up yourself, Stuart Salassi can make it happen. He is a certified GIA Diamond graduate. So get by and see him, Salassi's, and please mention us when you do. Have yourselves a great weekend. Take care.
Don't forget to go out and vote, and don't forget the Mediathon for Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital goes on through the end of business today. So make a contribution. Help the kids.
Adios.
Bye-bye.